Case, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it.
And it's exciting to be here asking you some questions, learning a little bit more. I have the pleasure of being able to see you at least once a week on our intentional wealth calls, which is awesome. But I haven't got a chance to dive in really to like your history as much as a business owner and what you guys have been doing, except for the fact that you guys have been on a really incredible like growth trajectory over the last year and a half, and I wanted to dive into it. So my first question is, I would love to hear a little bit about Pokoloko and how you got started.
Yeah, sure. So Pokoloko started basically kind of as a side hustle that I was introduced to via a family business. So my uncle started a business like 35 or something years ago, importing artisan-made goods from Asia, where he was working. And then when I was in high school, my parents bought and transferred that business to a farm in a barn that we own outside Ottawa in Canada. It was a really unique, where they're only open for like 7 weekends a year and retail a whole bunch of product as kind of an event. And I started traveling, kind of sourcing stuff that they weren't sourcing. So really Pokoloko started as just me as an excuse to travel and kind of see the world. And I started going to South America because they weren't there, and picked up Spanish right out of high school, and then kind of started buying things for their shop, and then seasonally started selling it to other shops around the region in Ontario where I live. And in the beginning, it was really just an excuse to kind of travel for the winter and then work hard in the fall and really just have another vacation. And like my business trips were kind of extended vacations, we'll say, in the beginning. And then I met my partner in like 2013, and she had just come back, and we were looking for something to kind of put ourselves towards. And I brought her on board, and we both went. We were still kind of doing it part-time, but we went full-time with it in 2016. It kind of got serious and got bigger. We started getting our first employees and some sales agents, and it grew from there.
So what's the story behind the name Pokoloko?
Yeah, so the story behind the name was I was just kind of importing a few things here and there. And when I came back with my second order to my first producer family in Ecuador, they called me crazy. In Spanish is loco. And they said, just a little bit. So that became the name Pokoloko, just a little crazy. And then they're like, yeah, and they agreed. So, yeah.
That's awesome. It sounds like you had a good plan there. Be able to travel, use it as an excuse to go explore different international locations, bring stuff back, and sell it. So from my understanding is when you first came back, when you started selling, did you go straight to wholesale? Was that the plan, or how did you sell your first, let's say, $100,000 worth of stuff?
Yeah, so the first 100, it was straight wholesale. Yeah, I mean, I tried some other businesses earlier. At one point, I was selling jewelry from Africa when I was really young. But with the Pokoloko textiles from South America, the first 100,000 was just driving in my trailer, in my station wagon, and packed full of the blankets I was keeping in my closet and like my storage room, and just walking in, cold calling, cold going in. And in the beginning, we were doing it all on consignment because we really didn't know any better. And we were like just giving people product and waiting for them to pay us for it. And that wasn't sustainable, but that was how it started in the beginning. And that's how it got going.
That's awesome. And then, so 2016, you kind of started to go serious with it, grew on the whole side. How long did you focus primarily on wholesale before my relationship with you kind of developed around the transition onto DTC and online? Yeah. How long were you running just pretty much all wholesale? And what was the catalyst to transitioning over to selling online as well?
Yeah, so we were like 98% wholesale from 2016 up until 2020, up until COVID. really struck in. I'd always had the intention of building out the direct-to-consumer side and our website, but I think like a classic mistake that small business people make is thinking they can do everything and expecting that they'll have the time like on the weekend or late at night or next week, next month to finally get that business, that site together and finally do all those things that you have to do. So really the catalyst was COVID, where we'd been growing our wholesale like anywhere from 50 to 80% a year for 4 years and really putting everything into that. And it's a tough business, and the business model works. Like it's kind of an old school model, like put out a catalog, curate it twice a year, have new products, launch a bunch of products, have sales reps, have relationships with your customers who are independent stores. But then when COVID hit, we had all this product coming on ships in sea, waiting for spring to ship, and the whole world shut down. And, we were extended on our credit, and all our orders were being canceled. And we were like, we have to do something else. And then we had a month off. So we just worked on the website for a month. And then that's when I signed up for the coalition. I had first launched our Shopify store in early 2018. But never really had the bandwidth to really do what needed and what it required for it to be a real business. But yeah, that's when I joined the coalition, was after COVID, and we just focused on the website. And then coming out of the rebuilding, when things started to open up, we started hiring, really rebuilding the company and restructuring and having a marketing team for the first time, and e-commerce.
That's awesome. And I definitely want to go in and dive into what has worked for you and some of the changes. But from a mindset perspective, what's been the biggest difference from running wholesale versus online direct to consumer? What are some of the things that you've learned as you've gone through this transition?
That's a good question. I mean, it's a lot of the same lessons, but it's different with the B2C. I mean, the biggest thing is still, for me, customer service. It's making sure that your relationships and the connections are strong. And then if anyone's got a complaint, you address it, you acknowledge, you get to the bottom, and you give them the most truthful, best answer that you can, and try and keep your relationship with your customer as strong as you can.
How do you do that as you transition online? Because that could be, when you're in person, right, you've got the ability to relate. Yeah. How have you been able to translate that? I think a lot of people say that they want to do that and then struggle with that. Yeah,
it's hard. And we're still kind of struggling with it in the transition. But the main thing is just, if someone sends you a message, answer immediately, and address it, actually listen, and answer what they're actually saying. And then follow up. On the social media side, we try and be, authentic, which is another buzzword, but we just try and be ourselves, and then answer people as you would a friend or anyone that you're in front of. So that's where we're at, but we've got a lot more to learn and to scale. And as more customer service things happen, we're learning how to actually structuralize it in an e-commerce setting.
Sure. Yeah. I'll put a pin in that and come back to that, because I want to talk about the team difference and that sort of thing. But I would love to dive into, so kind of take me back. So you're transitioning to, you're like, all right, I've got this time, COVID hit, things have shut down. We're going to make a push to online, and you start focusing on the website. What were some of the things that you ended up focusing on those first 3 months to really, when you say focus on the website, what did that mean to you? And what were the things that you actually did that moved the needle for you?
Yeah, well, there was a few different ones. And when I say focus on the web, it's really kind of e-commerce. And I look at it as building a wall. So it's brick by brick laterally, and then you can build it up higher. But the first three things, I guess, was the actual website. We kind of did a minor redesign, and we did it all ourselves. Just tried to upgrade the user experience, the banners, the look, the feel, the color format. There's still a ton of work to be done, but that made a big change. We got products that we were missing because we just didn't have the time to launch them at retail. So we got those up there. And then we started really focusing on the social media. We brought someone in to help us with that, because it's a huge job on its own. And she really helped us kind of articulate our brand and how we connect with people, like on the social media side. So our retention was there. We're trying to retain, the people that were interested and grow that. So those were the main three things that we did at the beginning. And we saw an immediate, like our website before COVID was really small, just doing a couple $1,000s a month, and then immediately was up like 10 times right after. And we saw that in April. So like about a month after we had kind of been grinding on it for a bit. And then we've been steadily growing it every month since then. Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned was that you're trying to build a marketing team and like build a team to be able to help you continue this path, right? Because it started from what it sounds like, it started at a couple $1,000s and it's grown quickly on the online side. Where are you at now? Like percentage of business B2C versus B2B after this last year?
So right now, the last couple months, it's been about 15 to 20% is B2C. And those B2C dollars, really, I look at it as like 3 B2B dollars for each B2C dollar, because like the margins are, your costs and everything are different, but the margins are so there's a lot more breathing room as a business like owner trying to cover my costs. So it's been really helpful.
That's awesome. And so when you're building this team, like what are some of the places or the roles that you recognize as you were growing on the B2C side, like that you just needed to hire? Because you mentioned a couple of things that was interesting. One, how much of a challenge it is to do social media and how much of a job that is. And then customer service side as well. Like if you want to offer really, really good customer service, what were some of the roles that popped up for you and how have you been kind of filling that in evolving as a team leader?
The first one was social media. We had been doing it ourselves. Like mostly my partner, Jessie, had been doing it in her off time after like a million other things that she's doing. So she was doing a great job, but just not, a couple hours a week maybe devoted to it. So that was the first thing, was to try and get our communication and like our branding and our messaging consistent. And then the next one was we needed a calendar, like a marketing calendar, and we needed someone in charge of it. So we hired kind of a general marketing manager who works with us to kind of establish a calendar at least 1 month out. And then we think about all the assets that are related to it, everything that has to happen when, and we just start divvying up those tasks and executing it. And then the next thing we did was email. And email was one of those like really easy, not easy, but low hanging fruit, where we saw instant results of things that we could have been accessing earlier. So it's just, I followed the training in the coalition, which is great. And, it seems to be, it doesn't change much. Like a welcome flow is a welcome flow. Just make it as good as you can. And like, we're right now retweaking it and redesigning all our flows after doing a big push last summer. And now email is almost half of the revenues on the website is coming from Klaviyo. So that was a big one. And then we went to Facebook. So those were the three that we were focused on.
That's awesome. So when you're on email, did you start with just building your flows and then transitioning with your calendar to being able to send emails? Like, is it weekly, twice a week, once a month? How did you make that transition?
Yeah, we actually started with a couple campaigns where we're like, we need to do something and like get something happening. So we came up with like some give back campaigns. It was actually brought up with a friend in Ecuador. And so he was trying to raise some funds. We said, hey, we'll use the company as a platform and we'll do a weekend sale and we'll donate percentage of proceeds to what you're doing down in Ecuador. And that created a big boost. And then, so we started with the campaigns, and then the flows take, more work, more thought. But they really they run while you sleep. So they're the ones that really pay off long term. I'm forgetting the actual question that you asked, but.
Oh, just about like how did you start? And I think one thing that holds people back often is bandwidth or like tech know-how. Were you writing the emails? Did you hire somebody? Do you have any tips for somebody who is in the same position as you? They're like, oh, I really want to tackle email and I don't know how to get started.
Yeah, I would say if you're like a business, running a business and you feel like you don't have the time and you don't want to do it in your off time, we hired somebody and we worked with them. Like the first thing when we hired our marketing manager was establish like, what is the brand? Like, what are our pillars? And so those are kind of like our subjects that we can go back to and repeat on. But myself and Jesse really worked on the content of like the about us and the things that really make us unique. And we use that in the emails. So we try to kind of recycle as much as we can to have both consistency and save like our limited human resources. So we hired someone and we tested them for email. That was one of the main things we were looking for was how do they communicate? Do they have enough of a graphic side and a writing side, like that perfect mix between.
It's challenging, right?
Yeah. And now we're at a point where we've grown it and like we understand each other's strengths and weaknesses better. So now we're parsing it out where, first thing we do is the theme, the subject, write that out, and then we bring someone in to do the graphics, and then we look over it at the end and we kind of batch it all, but we get a better end product doing that.
That's awesome. How was the transition onto Facebook, and what levels of like success, what have you found to be helpful as you kind of made the transition to amplifying social media?
Mm-hmm. So Facebook has been hard if we're talking about like Facebook advertising. When we started last summer, it was going well last summer. We started small, a small spend of a couple $1,000 a month, and we scaled it up to Black Friday, and we went pretty aggressive last Black Friday for us, at least as a small business. But in the beginning, we saw a nice ROAS that we were profitable on. We had this campaign structure that was working for us. We scaled it successfully. But then since Black Friday, we've really struggled to keep those returns up. And we've been kind of changing strategies every 2 months to try and find something that works. So we've been struggling the last 3 months this new year on Facebook, but we're kind of regrouping and just always kind of thinking about how we can do it better. And it's not easy. It's competitive out there and it's getting expensive.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
for sure. And things that do work will end up changing and it'll die down and come back up. So how is this transition adding more of a, B2C side of the business? Mm-hmm. When you look at where you're at now, and, we're recording this, it's been about 1 year, a little bit over a year since like COVID hit North America, at least. Mm-hmm. And a lot of changes have been made. How do you feel about the business now that you have kind of two things happening? What impact, if any, has that had on the wholesale side of the business?
Honestly, we had lots of reservations and concerns about scaling the B2C, but generally we've seen nothing but positive impact. Like the one thing I found with the marketing is the marketing kind of raises everything. The marketing doesn't just help the B2C. It's raising your visibility or people's, how much they recognize you. Like that helps the B2B as well. And then we see that correlation directly. Some of the retailers and our B2B customers don't love it. But generally we've seen like an increase in their orders from an increase in our social media, and we're happy to feed back to each other. So, it hasn't been nearly as problematic as I anticipated.
Sure. That's great. I hear that a lot around like the halo effect of advertising. There's so many things that it impacts outside of just return on ad spend, right? I'm guessing a lot of the people that are buyers are probably in your retargeting funnel, so they probably maybe think about you a little bit more as well.
Yeah. You got to wonder who's getting hit with some of the ads. Yeah.
So I know, you've been an entrepreneur for quite a long time, and is this the largest team that you are running?
Yeah.
That you've ever ran before?
For sure. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've learned about being like a leader and a manager over the last year and a half that maybe you wish you knew a couple years ago?
I've learned a lot about leadership from you and some of your newsletters, I'll say. And I've learned a lot from my partner, Jessie. She's really this incredible kind of integrator, COO figure in the team. But the first thing I think is like trusting your team, finding people that you trust and like supporting them and empowering them and like listening to them. That's the big thing. And Jessie really leads by example. Like she puts her employees ahead of her 10 times out of 10. And same thing with our customers and our reps. Integrating is a hard one, is kind of like making space for people to be heard, but also follow the direction. And this is, this is difficult and something we're working on all the time. And as the business has grown into different channels, that's the hardest part, is making the two channels synchronized and trying to get on the same page with people that aren't necessarily working on the same projects or even with the same customer base, but trying to save effort across those different areas.
Are you talking about wholesale versus?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay, yeah. How about you personally? How has your role changed over the last year and a half?
Yeah, my role's mostly changed by trying to do less and trying to help. Yeah, trying to give up responsibilities is a tough one for me. Like I tend to make myself the choke point. So trying to remove myself and support others, but also keeping an eye on the big, kind of the overall picture is, I think, and the strategy behind what we're doing. Because it's really, really easy to get lost in the details and the work. And you got to keep in mind your targets and your projections and why and what you're working towards.
Sure.
So that's mostly what's changed for me, is I'm doing less kind of head down grinding and trying to be more all in seeing. And a lot of that's kind of like company wide KPIs, trying to really understand each channel and everyone's contribution to it. And I'm trying to figure out ways to make everybody responsible and kind of feed back to as an individual and as a whole. So that's what we're working on.
Cool. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's the all big part of the journey. It's a lot of fun. What resources have you found to be helpful as you've kind of going down this journey? I mean, you talked about a little bit about the coalition, but anything else that you found helpful as you've gone down this journey towards opening up direct to consumer, and just continuing to grow the business?
A big one was podcasts on the B2C side of like how other people are run and structure and the challenges they do. There's a couple forums I'm in, like the Brand Growth Forum. The Intentional Wealth has been really helpful connecting with other business owners. Early on, it was people in my network that I'd met actually through business. And some of them were kind of like indirect competitors that were just friends, and they might be further along or not, but had experiences that were really helpful. And sometimes it's kind of like little light bulb moments where they'll just have something that seems so obvious, but it can really change your approach and like your strategy behind something. So those are and then also books. I read Shoe Dog. It was a great book.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like, puts everyone's struggle into perspective of building a business. So that's a good one. That was a take.
What are you excited about right now, man? I mean, you guys are kind of rolling. Things are going pretty well. What are you excited about?
I'm most excited about trying to build a company where people want and are happy working at and staying at for a while. So we're really trying to focus on the organization and a culture of working hard, being accountable, and like being satisfied and getting some fulfillment other than, just selling products. We're trying to kind of create a community for our customers, but also for our staff and our suppliers. So that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do it while running a profitable, fast growing business. That, and really trying to work on branding and storytelling, which was kind of the last thing that we focused on. I'm not personally super active on social media. Marketing was always I avoided it because it was uncomfortable, and that was a mistake. I should have kind of started there a lot earlier. And so we're kind of trying to define and crystallize the marketing and the branding.
Anything that's been successful, particularly around, I think, the idea of creating a culture in a workplace that people want to work long term. Is there anything you've tried or done that you're like proud of that you feel like has worked and has been something that's been well received that other people can maybe take?
I don't know if I've got any hacks. It's a tough one to hack. I think we're really lucky in who we've
it's a tough one to
been
hack.
able to find and who's found us. And it's a dynamic thing. It's a group of people. So in the warehouse, there's like 6 to 10 people every day in the warehouse and office. And then there's a couple remote workers. So there's like 15 of us in the core team. And then there's a bunch of contractors that are really integral to the growth, to the business as well. But I think it's kind of just like we work really hard. So there's not a lot of play. So I don't know. We haven't like attracted people with a fun play. Like there's not a lot of downtime. I think it's kind of just a respect, a listening, a caring, and just, not trying to treat them like you would, someone you care about.
For sure. And I appreciate you coming on and chatting and sharing your story. What, did you have any, so if somebody's listening and they would like to get in touch with you or connect with you and grow maybe your network, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I guess LinkedIn these days. Case Bakker, you can find me on LinkedIn, co-founder of Pokoloko. That would probably be the best. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well, but I think LinkedIn, you can find me on there. Yeah.
I will put a link in the show notes. Case, it's awesome to chat with you and get to know a little bit more about your story. I'm excited for you. And thanks so much, man, for hopping on and chatting with me.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it. And I remember when I was starting the D2C business, I downloaded like 20 podcasts and started listening to you and Andrew. And it's kind of been like a guiding light through this journey. And your newsletter has also given some like nuggets of wisdom that have been indispensable. So thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Case, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you hearing that. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.